How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the first episode of the Vega Brothers Music and Movie Hour. And we are two brothers from the same mother and father. And but we are inviting you guys to come along on a ride with us. We're going to take deep and murky dives into music and films, mainly covering the classics and the modern guitar-driven music of our time, and horror movies and sci-fi, because it's what we do best.
We've actually been wanting to do this for quite some time. Didn't really know how we could work together, since Armando is in California and I'm in Texas. But
yeah, through I think one of the reasons to me this seems like it's going to be a blast is because we're both lifers when it comes to music and movies, and this now is the time to kind of just try to get away from the grind that we normally get from and just try to escape a little bit. And there's no better way to do it in music and movies, and it's probably the thing that we have the most in common. This
trying, strange time that we're living in, this pandemic time, has kind of whatever interest or hobbies that you had, this has kind of forced us to dive even deeper into whatever, I was reading the other day that Fender has never, since their history, Fender guitars and musical instruments has never sold more guitars than 2020.
Insane.
Yet there's a boom with guitars and effects and amplifiers. They've never sold more guitars,
And I bet that movie streaming services have never seen this kind of
traffic. I was just going to say, and it's also a golden age, not just for movies and acting and whatnot, because of all the available streaming services that have their own shows that they're producing. In addition, for it being a golden age for film and TV, it's even more so for horror and sci-fi. There's never, it's kind of through this quarantine time, it's kind of having another golden age. Horror is doing better and more consistent than all other film right now. It's funny. And I remember reading whenever the Exorcist was released. It was a very dark, depressing time because it was in the midst of the Vietnam War, and people wanted to see horror. You would think it would be the opposite, that people would want to see comedy, but horror actually does better and has done better through the years whenever the country has been going, or the world has been going through a dark period. It's kind of ironic.
Man, you know what? I would love to see somebody out there with that is a geek about putting together spreadsheets and kind of take cinema and guitars and put it in a spreadsheet to see and then line it up with the economic downturns and see how it
man, it's really fascinating.
But I know I've met more horror fans these last 2 or 3 years for sure, and then now just kind of because everybody's communicating in great detail now on social media that you just see like younger people discussing movies from the 80s.
Exactly, yeah.
And so they have all this access, at
this being our first episode, if I just give you a little background for someone for whoever might be listening to this first episode, it's the music and movie hour, but Armando and I both are obsessed with horror and sci-fi films. And
Yeah.
I play guitar because of Armando, and I also am a horror fan because of Armando. So Armando's 5 years older than me. I was born on his birthday. So it's music and movie. We had hoped that maybe the first half hour of these shows that were, focus on guitar music and whatnot, and then the next half hour or the last half hour focus on movies or horror sci-fi. Anyway.
Yeah, and we do intend to bring in. We both have access to a cast of characters that would be awesome guests. That as soon as we figure out the nuts and bolts on how to do all that, we're going to bring in more guests and then maybe some video component. One thing I did want to kind of bring up is when we got our start in horror. I think that we both have, like, being 5 years apart, you were on the tail end of it. But there was a huge horror explosion when we were children, and we went from Famous Monsters magazine to Fangoria, and then beyond. And it was, as you guys know, the 80s and the resurgence in the 90s was a great time for horror, and the VHS explosion. A lot of our references going to go back, but I think one thing that that I think we kind of agree on is that this is going to be less of a critique, kind of a review channel. It's going to be more about recommendations, and maybe I may not agree with Tony, or Tony may not agree with me, but we're bringing stuff to the table that we think you guys should check out, because there's such a wealth of streaming music and movies that I think sometimes hearing from somebody else a recommend as opposed to a bashing, kind of just gives a fresher perspective, because it's so hard to find stuff. I find that I'm looking through the selections for longer than it takes me to watch a movie.
I do that after the family goes to bed. It really happens every night. I spend more time looking for the golden thing to watch. There's so much.
Yeah.
Like, what do I throw in on? And then once you start watching it, you watch so little of it because it's so late by then.
Yeah. I just my queue is filled, like, with 1,000 movies. So we're going to talk about music now with you guys. And as you guys know, this week we wanted to focus on Eddie Van Halen. As you guys know, he passed away on October 6th, 2020. And, he's a super important person in the history of guitar music, but in particularly for guys like us who saw it in real time from the beginning to the end. It's really like, it's really tragic and it's life-changing, but it's also really important, so we thought, what a greater way to start than to talk about Eddie, because he both touched us a lot musically. And
I noticed with Eddie Van Halen, the same thing has happened with a few. I don't know if it has to do with a personality type or, why this is, but I noticed with Eddie Van Halen, this happened with Stevie Ray Vaughan as well. With Eddie Van Halen, people were just that much more heartbroken and affected, like I just can't remember the last time. I mean, I was depressed with Tom Petty, and there have been some other awesome heavyweights during the years that have passed away, but something about and also you knew it was kind of coming. Everyone knew how sick he was and what his health status was. But yet it just hit everyone so hard. And I don't know if it has to do with his smile and, his personality or what it is. Yeah. Maybe it was just the time, like you said, it was such a big part of our upbringing, but he just made such a huge impact, especially for people that grew up in that era in the 80s, you know.
Yeah, I felt immediately that I'm not the only person that feels like this sad.
Yeah, right.
You can just feel, you know, you knew that you weren't just some weirdo. You know, like we all have those artists that you're the only fan.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
and
he's definitely, that, like I said, I felt that way with Stevie Ray Vaughan too, that everyone else was feeling it too, you know?
Yeah, I was just looking at how many, you know, people, like, I mean, I know I'm not the only one that gets teary-eyed regarding, you know, when you see videos of Eddie or you see him playing or listening to him, you know, I just knew I wasn't going to be the only one. And when I read on Twitter or I see online, I see, you know, so many guitar players feel the same way. They say they still get teary-eyed. They still get choked up.
Yeah, man. Definitely.
Yeah, I've been going through the catalog myself, you know, but, you know, to me, the first things that popped up to me when I heard he passed away was the first time that I ever heard Van Halen ever. And I think it's going to be different for you.
Yeah. I can't wait to hear this because, you know, I'll tell you my viewpoint, vantage point, you know, after you're done.
So the first time I heard Van Halen, I was a chubby kid. So immediately you get picked for the football team, whether you can play or not. And so I'm on the football team and I'm like third string. I'm not even going to ever play. Right. But I did it because all my buddies were in it, and I wanted to lose weight and get in shape. So I'm on the field and I'm goofing around, you know, like, and then there was this cheerleader who was a year older than me that was just amazing. Like, you know, she was like, it was like the scene in Fast Time at Ridgemont High when Phoebe Cates comes out of you know, every time I saw her walking the halls. So she's up in the bleachers and she has the boom box. And then Eruption comes on. And I literally, you know, stopped what I was doing. I was listening to it. And I just like had no idea that it was a guitar. I didn't even know what it was. It just exploded. And then, you know, and then You Really Got Me came on, and these cheerleaders are in the bleachers dancing. And the whole time, I just remember being the happiest I've ever been in my entire life, like listening to that music and watching these girls just absolutely like just enjoying the music.
What grade would this have been?
I'm thinking if this was middle school and she was a year ahead of me, 7th grade.
Okay.
Because you go to high school at 9th, so she must have been an 8th grader and I was in 7th grade. Because the following year, I immediately quit football. You know, the first time I got hit in a real game, I quit immediately.
Yeah, man, I don't blame you.
And then, so that was the very first time I heard Van Halen, and then there's a second time after that, but where it really got engraved in my head, and that was on a field trip to Washington D.C. again. A girl that I had a big crush on. She was our chaperone. She was 18, 19 years old. I think she was fresh out of high school. She was the coolest girl I had met ever. Like, she knew music really good. And so she drove in our car, and she had the 8 tracks. And she was turning us on to music the whole time. You know, I had big crush on her. I think I was already 15, maybe like 9th grade, 10th grade. She was had already graduated, and she was just the coolest. She could have wrote for Rolling Stone, you know, like. So she turned us on to Van Halen 2. We heard that like over and over and over. Asia, Steely Dan, and Lou Reed, Rock and Roll Animals, and those are like some of my top 3 albums of all time. So again, a girl drove me to Van Halen.
Wow.
You know, and anyways, those two they really got engraved in my head, and she had told me how they sold out because Dance the Night Away was so light, and she was disappointed in Van Halen too. That's how cool she
unusual.
was. That's
I was going to say.
Yeah. That's how
very
cool
unusual.
So yeah. So when was the first time you heard it?
Well, here was my entire experience right here. You know, you being 5 years older than me, not only were you my exposure to the music, but you're also already going to concerts and whatnot, you know. So I remember you and a few friends, Mom and I were taking you to see Van Halen. You guys had tickets. It was Fair Warning Tour, which would have been, I think, 1980 or 81. Okay.
It's September 12th, 1981 or 13th. I
There
just
you
looked
go.
up there when they played Houston
There it is, Sam Houston Coliseum. And
2 nights, yeah.
So, and a little background too, for those that weren't old enough to go to concerts back then, is back in the 70s and 80s, concerts were a lot more dangerous to go to. It was something that grown-ups did. There was, drugs, being done, out in the open. And it was physically not safe. There was a culture of, robbing T-shirts. You get enrolled for your T-shirts, jewelry, all that stuff. So, it was just had not entered my mind that I would be able to go to a concert at 10 years old. Yeah.
It was outlaw back then.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Where kind of hip hop and punk rock and stuff took over that outlaw element. At the time, rock and roll was outlaw.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Now, I remember they even had like the Guardian Angels in downtown for, extra security reinforcement because it was so dangerous back then. Anyway, 10 years old, sitting in the front seat, Mom's driving. You and the guys are in the back. We're dropping you off to see Van Halen. And we pull up in front of the Sam Houston Coliseum. And I didn't realize you guys had a ticket to sell because one of the guys didn't show up. So you had an extra ticket, right?
He flaked on Van Halen.
He flaked on Van Halen. That Van Halen in 1981. Yeah. So you guys had a ticket to sell. And like I said, it was dangerous to do that. Sometimes people would sell tickets and the people that were going to rob you for your money were posing as the person buying the ticket and would take your money and the tickets and everything. So I think that had maybe a little bit to do with the fact that we were dropping you off and you guys started walking towards the front door and you quickly came back to the car and bypassed me and just went straight to asking Mom if you can take me. And he said, "Hey, can we take Tony?" And I'll never forget the rush of, whatever it was, the juice, flowing through my body. Like I couldn't believe this was happening, and Mom was like, "I don't know, oh man, sure enough, man, not knowing that I'm going to my first concert ever. Here's not only my first concert, but Van Halen, so I get to go to Van Halen, thanks to you.
And we had floor seat.
We had floor seats. Loudest thing I've ever heard in my life at that point, And I can't remember if it was because I remember we went to go see either Van Halen or Kiss at the Sam Houston Coliseum, and Wendy O. Williams, the Plasmatics, were opening.
I remember
and
that.
I think this was it. I think this was my first exposure was not Van Halen, but the Plasmatics opening for Van Halen.
Was that the anniversary?
So loud.
Yeah. Was that the anniversary their anniversary where they had the cannon?
Kiss or Van Halen?
Yeah. Yeah, it was Kiss. Like their
I just don't. I don't remember which. I don't remember which one of those shows
Creatures.
it was. Yeah, exactly. Creatures of the Night or something.
I think so. Yeah.
But anyway, so we had floor seats, and I remember probably midway through, we rushed the stage. Back then, people just used to just forego the seats and just get as close to the stage as you can, whether there's seats there or not.
Was the opening band like a were they like a rockabilly band?
I don't remember that. I don't remember. I really don't. For some reason, I don't remember the opening.
That might have been a different show then.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I remember you guys were taking turns at one point, putting me on your shoulders.
Yeah, because the floor.
Because you couldn't see, if you were at a certain height.
Yeah.
And that was just amazing. I mean, it was. Yeah. We were right up to the stage almost.
Fair warning, man.
I mean, exactly how you see the video, Unchained.
Yeah.
When you see that video, they looked just like that up close, same outfits and everything. Back then, I think they just would circulate like 2 or 3 pieces of clothing.
Unbelievable.
And
what the song I remember the most that night, I don't know why, but was "Everybody Wants Some." I don't know why.
Huh.
And the Cradle.
I remember Ice Cream Man a lot because he had that dreamsicle looking acoustic guitar, David Lee Roth then. Yeah. And because I was on one of your shoulders, I could literally see his, he was right in my face almost.
Yeah, it was loud. I remember that. It was great. I remember the guitar solo being like mind-blowing.
Here's what I don't remember. There's another Van Halen memory, and it's when you brought home Van Halen 1 on vinyl.
Yeah.
And so it's same thing for me. It was Eruption, and you really got me, but it was because you were saying, dude, you have to hear this, this is ridiculous,
It used to take, it took forever to realize that was one guitar, and that was a guitar, all that stuff,
Yeah, nothing sounded like that,
there was
at
no
that time.
Studio trickery, it was shocking. Same thing with Randy Rhoads, but it was one of those things where it's like, this isn't just a regular guitar. There's no way.
Right. That's what the ironic thing is, other than him using a Variac to completely gain out his Marshall at a listenable level.
Yeah.
Other than that, he really wasn't using it. It was just the humbucker and the cranked up Marshall.
Yeah. It really. I don't know if for anybody out there, not to go into too much detail. There's a funny story about Ted Nugent checking out Eddie's gear and trying to find out if it was smoke and mirrors and how he was getting it done. And then Eddie played through his rig and sounded just like Eddie, and it's a story. It's been told a bunch of times, and Ted Nugent has said it quite a few times. But yeah, it's something that I would Google. It's a funny story. Now on the I met Eddie once.
Oh yeah, you have a Eddie story.
Yeah, and it was it was pretty funny. It was during the making of Van Halen 3, the Gary Cherone album. And the album, I can't remember if the album was already out, but he had gone to the NAMM convention, which is a music instrument convention, and Eddie was there to promote it. And I waited in line for a long time to meet him. And so at that time, I had my first ever CD. It was all cassettes up until that point. And I was really proud of having a CD, whether it sounded good or not, And I said, I'm going to give my CD out to all my rock stars that I meet at NAMM, So I gave one to Paul Stanley. I gave one to Tony Iommi, both guys that are like really important to me, growing up, obviously. And they were very, kind, and they took it and they put it away. And then so I waited in line, and you could tell Eddie was tired. He's not a huge fan of doing this kind of thing. And so I walk up, and I'm like afraid, like that I'm gonna tick them off. So I come up and I tell Eddie, hey man, I love what I've heard from the new record. And he goes, and it was kind of really heartfelt. It was really cool. He said, give it a chance, man. Please, listen to it. Listen to it a lot. Don't judge it right away on the first listen.
Which record was this?
This was the one with Gary Sharon.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. My bad.
Yeah. EVH number 3. You know, it was just, referred to or whatever. And I had just heard the first single. You know, but you know, and then I told him, "Hey Eddie, I want to give you my CD." And I put it up on the thing, and I slide it over to him, and he just kind of looks at it, and he was like, "This is your CD?" I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "What do you want me to do with it?" and I told him, I said, "Well, I want you. I would love for you to listen to it, man. You know, and see. You know." If he goes, "I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I won't listen to it, and I don't really know what I could do with it. You know." He's like, "If I were you, I would save it. You know, like don't waste it."
Completely honest.
Yeah, and so I walked away. I was butt hurt, man, and then it took me a day, and then I realized, you know what? He's absolutely right. It's like he's got his own music, you know. He's got his own thing. He's trying to promote a new record, and he's just not going to throw it in the trash can the way Paul Stanley probably did, you know. And
yeah.
You know, like I'm sure Tony Iommi like kaplunk as soon as I walked away, you know, went right in the trash can. So
right.
I never did really after that take offense. I was just happy I met him, and I do have an autographed 8x10, and
yeah, man, you know, that's awesome.
Yeah,
and you know, cool. That's part of his thing, man. Is kind of genius like thing. Supposedly, he doesn't listen to anybody's music, you know, like they asked him about Hendrix. You know, this was years ago. I couldn't tell you where I heard it, but they asked him about Hendrix, and he was like, you know, never was really a Hendrix fan. I never heard that stuff. Yeah. You know, he was into Clapton, you know, the Cream stuff.
Yeah, it would have been politically correct to say that, but but he didn't. You know, it's like, I think that's a great indicator of just honesty, I think, overall.
Yeah, man. He's complete. He always seemed like that. Complete. One of my favorites, speaking of honesty anyways, one of my favorite Van Halen stories I think is hilarious is when Randy Rhoads heard him play. And at the time, this was before the Floyd Rose and, you know, all the heavy modding with locking nuts and, you know, locking tuners or whatever. Yeah. This was before all that stuff. And he was doing all of the dive bomb stuff, all that stuff on the first 2 records on regular Stratocaster tremolo systems, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy.
And he was in tune, playing in tune, seemingly sounded like he was still in tune. And so Randy Rhoads, when he first heard him and saw him play, he was flabbergasted at this. Yeah. And because Randy Rhoads is so sweet natured, he you know, very honestly walked up to him after the show, and when they were talking, he was like, "Man, how do you do that? You know, can you show me how you you know, make it stay in tune?" And he was like, No way, man. He refused. He refused, and you know, at the same time, he was as known for turning his back. You know, when he did all the tapping stuff, because no one was doing it, and they weren't huge yet. So I
imagine that you know, that was one of his biggest fears, that somebody.
Yeah, man, he's someone like with that kind of exceptional talent and uniqueness, not being discovered yet to the world. You know, there's and look what happened, you know, as soon as everyone heard him, everybody stole everything they could from him, you know? Yeah.
By the way, I almost forgot to bring this up, but the shirt that I bought at the Coliseum back in, you know, at that, when they played Houston.
That Fair Warning.
That 81 September. I sold it for a pretty healthy amount of money. to one of those shops on Melrose, you know, that sell them.
Man!
I know. I felt dirty. I felt bad, but it didn't fit me anymore. And I saw that like they had all these concert shirts there, so I took a handful with them down there that, you know, I didn't think anybody would appreciate. And the Van Halen one, this was, you know, a couple years ago. I wish I would have kept it, to be honest with you. Like,
sure, man.
But at the time, I was like, you know, it's like, doesn't fit me, you know, and anyways, I thought that was kind of funny. No idea. I mean, so if any of you guys have a Van Halen shirts, they're going for a lot. But, you know,
go ahead.
No. Good. You were going to say.
Well, I was just going to say, back then, man, the only way we heard about these new guys, like Van Halen, new music or whatever, was the music rags, music magazines and the guitar magazines.
Yeah.
And then, we were lucky enough to have guitar music, hard rock, whatever kind of rock and roll that we're referring to, was still being played on regular radio back then.
Yeah.
There wasn't this, clear channel playlist that they have to stick to. The DJ could play whatever they wanted back then.
Yeah, I think David Lee Roth is, I'm a big fan of his podcast, and he did a whole thing on how radio has changed and how it used to be, where you would discover new bands in every city. That Van Halen, when Van Halen was on tour, every city had a different flavor. And now it's the same songs, and everybody's getting exposed to the same songs.
Right.
And I think that's why radio's in the shape that it's in, and people are listening to podcasts now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, there was so many takeaways from Eddie, and I think that's why he changed the game. And it was more than just like the technique, like the
Definitely.
for me, the big takeaways from Eddie was one of them was the thing where instruments, he had to tinker with them because they didn't do he questioned the designs, and he didn't play the same thing everybody else played. He did in the early days when he was figuring it out, but after a while he did things his own way, and he became that first guy ever that I think that became kind of this mad scientist that would ask why and how can I get this done when I hear him.
I was going to say that, just since Les Paul, man. And I think that's why they were buddies, because he was really the only guy since Les Paul to be that kind of, mad scientist, genius, tinker, hot rodder. The other thing I was, to add to that is before that, for the most part, you had Rory Gallagher and his Strat and, maybe a couple other beat up instruments that were famous. But before that, even with Hendrix, man, all the Beatles, Hendrix, all the popular artists, they all had shiny looking instruments,
Yeah.
And I think Van Halen was the first guy that came out and, just started beating this guitars to shit and hot rodding them and changing things, taking this out, throwing that away, painting them himself. I mean, he just kind of made it okay to have a beat to crap, function over form, I guess.
Mutt. I got a quick little tale that I got from Michael Anthony. I don't know him. I'm not name dropping him out. I was just because of my job at the time. He was doing a photo shoot, and he had
Michael Anthony was.
Yeah, and I just happened to be there, and then they left me alone in the room with him, and so I just kind of started asking him about his bass, the famous bass that he had for many years that looked like it was like burned. So it was a Yamaha that he had gotten from like the guys from headquarters in Japan, and they were playing. I don't know. I forgot what tour it was. I think it was Diver Down. Not sure, but he got a brand new bass from them, and then he showed it to Eddie and he showed it to the band, and they were all like, meh, and he left it there and he went to the restroom. And he came back, and when he came back, Eddie had taken his soldering iron and burned the whole guitar.
You mean just for aesthetic purposes, like just to make it look?
He burned it like he defaced the whole thing, and he said, now it looks like a Van Halen bass. and Michael said, oh well, and it became his iconic second.
And you got this story from him,
from Michael Anthony. Yeah,
that's awesome, man.
Yeah, he said
that's really cool.
He said it looked too clean and too
because I'd never even heard that. I'd never even heard that story. Man.
Yeah, and the ad was going to be that bass, and they were doing a reissue, and and so he posed with the original bass and he posed with the new bass, but you know, and then I asked him what, you know, how that happened, and so he gave me that little, I mean, he goes into more detail, but I thought it was kind of funny. You know, I think the other takeaway from Eddie was exactly what you said earlier, to be an original, just all the way around, how you dress.
Then you know, it's so funny, man. I heard this quote.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, man. But it's exactly, he's one of a handful of people, man, in history that I think about when I hear this quote from Thelonious Monk, and it's, the genius is the most like himself in the room. Oh, he's the one that's most like himself.
Wow, that's powerful.
And that, you know, geniuses don't know they're geniuses, you know. They're just, they go their own path, and don't listen to a lot of, you know, they're not heavily inspired by other people. They're more concerned about making their own thing, you know.
And he did, you know, and that's why I think one of the things I carried along myself, like I didn't want to play the same amp as everybody else. I didn't want to play the same guitar as everybody else. I didn't want to dress like anybody else. I never learned of any Van Halen song in my entire.
Sure.
Because I was a huge fan of his philosophy more than like to be. I didn't want to sound like him. I didn't want to look like him. But it influenced me. He influenced me in such a profound way, like that. You know, where like be yourself. If you want to play a Telecaster and all your buddies are playing Flying V's, play a Telecaster. Attitude. Even somebody says a Telecaster isn't rock, isn't metal. You know, and for him, it's like he took a Strat and he took a Les Paul and he made a hybrid of it because he just didn't want to be like everybody else. He had a sound set, and you know, so I always thought to myself, like, be Eddie. You know, be like Eddie. Don't worry about the trends. Don't worry about what's a hit song. He didn't want to keep doing cover songs for that reason, right? He wanted to write his own music. He didn't care about having it. He knew if they did a cover song that they would have an instant top 10 hit, and he fought that in the end.
If I may add to that, because it's relevant, and this didn't always flow well with everyone, and myself included. But in hindsight, it was like, man, he did whatever the hell he wanted to, man. Yeah. And that's his keyboard, and that's his keyboard influence. You know, when they started doing that, 1984, and then, you know, the subsequent records with Sammy Hagar, I'm not a big fan of those records and that sound, but that's what he wanted to do. And he wasn't doing it because it was a trend or whatever. So, you know, hats off.
You know, the great thing about the Gary Cherone album and the Sammy Hagar album is that, you know, to many of us, and you know, I'm the first one to admit it. I'm like you. I haven't been a huge fan of that catalog. But now it's like undiscovered music for me. So now that's good. You can always revisit it, and it's like a brand new discovery, man. I can't wait. You know, it's like the endless Hendrix albums that came afterwards. There's only so much stuff in there. With Eddie, there's an entire catalog of music that I don't know the deep cuts.
That's a really good point.
So I'm really looking forward to that stuff, and then listening to it a little bit with a different ear now, you know, a little more detail. His sound did change, and as time went on, you know, I think what it really was is just the band matured in sound, and I think some of us that came from the David Lee Roth side, you know, just weren't ready to be as mature. You know, it was very mature sounding. But whenever I saw him twice with Sammy, and I could tell you, man, that every time I walked in, I was kind of like, man, you know, I'm not super, you know, excited about this, but you know, I'm here because, you know, I got a cheap ticket, or I'm going with a friend, or it's part of a big festival. And each time they blew the roof off the joint every single time. Same thing with David Lee Roth when they got back together. You know, I never saw a Bad Eddie show. I'm lucky. I've never seen a Bad Eddie show.
He was so so perfect, always on, man. You know?
And you know, just to cap it off for me, I was one of those people that were mad that Michael Anthony wasn't part of the last final reunion shows. But now in hindsight, just looking at the fact that there was 3 Van Halens on stage, father, son, and brother, must have been mind blowing for Eddie to be rocking.
Oh man, yeah,
rocking all those people and his sons on stage with him, and I'm really glad that he had a chance to do it.
That's really cool, man. I mean, really like any man's dream, probably on either side. Yeah. I'm sure Wolfgang could say the same.
Have you heard his song that he released today?
I have not. I read the story today. This morning about Wolfgang's new song, but I have not heard it. I have not heard it.
Check out the video. It's a tearjerker, man. It screwed me up. I saw it first thing in the morning. Somebody sent it to me in my messages, and then I saw it. I was like, "Oh man, that's deep, man." Well,
I gotta check it out, man.
But I don't really have too much more to say about contributors. Just like I know that he was really important to us, and that it's weird.
The guitar sound, probably one of the most influential, most copied guitar sounds.
Yeah.
Ever. That brown sound. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Unmistakable. Eddie Van Halen.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with the horror cinema portion of the show, you guys. So grab yourself a nice drink, and sit back and relax, and hopefully we're going to turn you on to something nice and creepy. Bring it on. Bring it on. And we're back.
We're back.
All right. I hope you guys had a nice little break. So tonight's movie selection is, I think it's is it a Shudder exclusive?
It is a Shudder exclusive, yes.
We're covering a horror anthology film called The Mortuary Collection.
Yes.
Yeah, and we love anthology films.
Yeah. First of all, Shudder. I don't know. Not everyone's going to know what that is. It's an app, a channel that if it were around when we were kids, man, we would have flipped out, man.
Yeah.
It's a channel of nothing but horror and sci-fi films, shorts, TV series, documentaries, all horror. And it's awesome. And they have their own productions, and the Mortuary Collection is a Shudder exclusive.
I've been such a big fan of anthology films for so many different reasons. You could watch a little bit at a time. You could watch more than once, but there's just something about it. I think it comes from the comic book aspect. I think, being a genre fan. I think that's where it comes from. I'm not sure.
Yeah. My introduction to horror books, or just reading adult books, was Stephen King, and it was a hand-me-down anthology book, Night Shift.
Oh man!
And I think you touched on something. I think the cool thing about anthology films are, if you have a short attention span, it's awesome, because you might not, if you start watching a movie and you don't dig too much how it's going, well, in an anthology, if you don't like the current story, the next one might be better, or vice versa.
True.
So it's just a good introduction. It's great for people that have a short attention span. And there have just been, whether you like them or not, there have been some great anthology films. Run in our film history. So going in chronological order, back in the black and white days, I think 1945. There's a film called Dead of Night, and it was the first well-known anthology film. If you do the Rotten Tomatoes thing, IMDb thing, it's really highly rated. It's just one of those, it's got it's a prestigious film. It's a British film, actually. And it was like the first, it has a story in it. I think it's the last story. It's the first time you see a creepy ventriloquist doll, talking on its own.
Oh,
that's kind of its, I guess the most memorable talked about segment is the doll. And later on, the Twilight Zone had an episode called The Dummy, which is basically kind of a rip-off. They kind of took that segment and, ran with it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, in the 70s, Trilogy of Terror. If that does not ring a bell, then you'll know it by the little tribal doll that's chasing a woman, poor Karen Black, around the house. So I mean, I think most anyone that grew up around that time, it left an indelible mark on their psyche.
Oh man, that is just one of the creepiest things ever. Is that little voodoo doll? And the funny thing is, they what was that one called? I think Amelia, whatever they
the earlier story in the maybe the you mean that segment. The one with the doll. Yeah, I don't remember the actual names of the segments.
I know how to wear it, but this little Zuni Hunter doll, whatever. Yes, I see it show up on so many people's Instagram, and I even saw Slash post a picture of it. And
that's hilarious.
And which makes sense because I'm probably around his age. And
So, like I said, man, anybody in the 70s or 80s knows what that is.
Yeah. Trilogy of Terror, that's a great one. What about Black Sabbath? What year? When did that? What was that? The one with Boris Karloff, was it?
That one. Okay. Is that also an anthology?
I've been wanting to look for it, and I don't know. Legend says, I mean, that's where Sabbath got their name from it.
Yeah, no, I know that for sure. That's a true story, but I never saw the film.
It was 1960. I thought, it's 1963. So that makes sense that it would affect that Black Sabbath would be all over that. Especially with Boris Karloff. So their first album came out probably in '67. So they probably, I've never seen it, and I'm sure. I'm sure a lot of people would probably diss me for that, but I've been searching for it.
I haven't. I'm guilty of that too. I have not seen it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in any of the streaming platforms, but I could be wrong. It looks like Prime Video has it under premium.
I was going to say, I think it is. I think you can get it on most of the streaming platforms.
But you got to buy it.
Yeah. You either have to rent it or buy it. Yeah, you're right.
So what other?
So 1982 comes along, and I'll never forget it. We were so hyped for this. Stephen King and George Romero decide to buddy up and make the very classic Creepshow.
I watch it once a year at least, easily.
Oh man, I turned Vincent, my son, 11-year-old. I turned him onto it probably about a year and a half ago, and he loves it.
Yeah, I try to do it for Father's Day every year, and they got shot down. I love it. I can see.
Yeah, I was doing some. It's a classic to me. It's it should be just an absolute 5-star classic for what it is, right?
Oh yeah.
But check this out. Well, check this out. I was doing a little bit of research. I get into the Rotten Tomato ratings and IMDb ratings for movies that I haven't seen because there's so much to choose from.
Yeah, it helps.
And a lot of people look down on Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb, but they don't realize that it's really just a mathematical, it's just math. It's just X amount of people saying they liked it or not.
Yeah.
They have critics, ratings, and then the people, viewers ratings. And then, so it kind of makes sense. You can, of course, they don't get it right all the time. And this might be a perfect example because I was looking at the ratings, like say the Mortuary Collection, the movie we brought up earlier. It's got a 95% Rotten Tomato.
Wow.
For the critics portion, for the viewers, it's 81%. In other words, it's very highly rated. But would you consider that a classic? Not necessarily. It's just right, like a kind of a horror movie. It's entertaining. It's good and everything.
Yeah.
But Creepshow, check this out: 73% Rotten Tomato for the critics. Critics, of course, the critics didn't like it back then, and then 68% for the viewers. Like,
I think nostalgia.
Yeah, man.
It must be nostalgia. You take the nostalgia out of it because,
So we're wrong. Are we we're the wrong guys?
I think when you're the mood you're in when you watch it, become and it just sticks with you. Like it's like the movie.
Yeah.
Like you could show the Warriors to somebody young now. And
I did. I actually did that, and they did not like it. Yeah. So yeah, it's hard to be objective.
Yeah.
I was because
thinking a couple of this happens all the time with music too. It's it doesn't always work. Just the even like election polls, right? Like, it's like they don't always turn out how you think they're going to turn out. But I was thinking about the modern anthology films too that have been pretty good. Like the ABCs of Death was a great series. You had to. Not all of the segments were, amazing, but it was still kind of cool to kind of go through. VHS. I
liked VHS. Yeah, VHS. The first couple were great, man. They're really inventive.
Did you like Creepshow too?
I like it as a B movie. Kind of when you want to have a Big Mac and fries. That kind of deal. Yeah. I don't think I don't rewatch it like I do the first one.
Yeah,
but
I just saw it again on Shudder. It's like you said, it's a light watch. It's man. I wouldn't watch it on Halloween, or Halloween Eve,
right?
But I would definitely, and of course, Trick or Treat. That one. I
got to give that one another try. I got to check that one out again.
I really enjoyed it because I saw it with my kid. And she liked it, and the fact that she liked it made me like it more. And,
there you go, yeah.
And it is kind of one of those holiday. You got to be in the mood.
It's so funny you said that because Vincent liked Creepshow too. He didn't. He didn't necessarily like it better in the first or anything, but he actually liked Creepshow too. That's cool. And I think that makes me like it a little bit more because of that.
So that leads us to the Mortuary Collection. I saw this twice. And I'm just going to, maybe I'll run down a quick synopsis. And if we get too spoilery, we apologize. We'll try to keep it.
Yeah, I'll try to give you a heads up.
But if not, you're on your own. Save this and then watch it and then come back. But, we're talking about the movie is centered around Raven's End, a creepy little town with a creepy little mortuary. That is Raven's End Mortuary, and it's of course managed by an eccentric undertaker whose name is Montgomery Dark. Such a cool name.
May I say he's played by famous character actor Clancy Brown, who you might know as the prison guard in Shawshank Redemption. He does the voice of Mr. Krabs in SpongeBob.
Yeah.
He's also an executive producer on the movie. So he had something to do with the making of it too.
It blew me away. And it kind of reminded me of the tall man from the Phantasm series.
Yeah, totally.
And you got to remember him. He was also in Bad Boys.
Not too many people remember that movie.
Yeah, movie with Sean Penn.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So this small town, Raven's End, in the 80s. This mortician Montgomery Dark, he's managing this mortuary. And then one day, this young girl named Sam comes. She's responding to a help wanted sign that's hanging outside. And she's showing interest in applying for this job with Montgomery. So when he Sam comes in, gives her an interview, and he starts taking her on a tour of the facility. And then she starts showing a lot of curiosity about his child-sized coffin that Montgomery has in the main room. He just performed this funeral service for this child-sized coffin, and of course, Montgomery, takes the bait, and Sam keeps asking him for stories, and I guess every dead person has a story, and they proceeded.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's there's I think 4 segments, 4 stories, and then of course there's a wraparound. So the first story, what did you think of the first story?
Well, I was just going to say that one thing that I found unique about the Mortuary Collection was the unevenness of the stories. But like that first story is very, very short. It's almost like a tiny little short. And then the other ones are pretty standard length. But I think more so than all the other anthologies, the running through story that Armando just laid out, with the funeral home is a little bit more prevalent, it's a lot more of the picture or the movie than most anthology films.
Yeah, I thought so too. Normally you could spot a really bad anthology film with when all of the stories are so segmented. I mean, they're so different from each other, and then the wraparound is desperately trying to wrap it into a anthology film where it's it's disconnected. This one, you really felt connected between the story that drives through, and the frame per se, and the segments. They all had continuity. I thought the first one that it gave me kind of that, it reminded me of the 50s creature films. With it definitely looked like it was centered in the 50s, and then the only thing that was missing was the horn blast music, like from the Creature of the Black Lagoon.
Right.
But I thought the first story was short and sweet. I liked it. I think
and they had something I liked about the film is I like practical effects. I like old school effects, and they do have CG. They have some CG in it, but they did also had a lot of practical effects and old fashioned blood and gore.
I was a big fan.
It is, man. It was very gory. They definitely went for the gross out. Absolutely. In a lot of the segments,
they did. I thought they used the CGI to create the big world atmosphere, but when it came down to the nitty gritty and the gore, it was more practical. And there's nothing more gorier than that the second segment. I think I didn't really have a title, but I called it "Better Safe Than Sorry." And that really reminded me kind of the 80s frat boy, annoying frat, campus stud, and then the sort of revenge turnaround that happens. Really interesting, as this guy's, I think his name was Jake, and he's passing out condoms on the campus, preaching the value of safe sex, but at the same time, he wasn't practicing it. And throws a big party, and then things happen to him afterwards. And man, the final scene in that segment, there's a microsecond of a flash that will engrave in your brain forever, man.
Yeah. If I may say so, this will be the only thing that I'll spoil, and I'll say spoiler alert, spoiler alert. But it's the only exploding penis that I've ever seen on. There's an exploding penis gag. And it's not pornographic. It has nothing to do with that kind of. It's really they took the old school gross out horror and had fun with it.
Yeah, there were walls to be cleaned. And that was funny. On the second watch, I enjoyed it better. That segment. Yeah. I thought I was going to fast forward, and I did, and then the next vignette is definitely very dark. I thought
that's
till death
pretty
do us part.
Very very Edgar Allan Poe-ish kind of.
That's exactly what it reminded me of. And I thought the atmosphere, the building, the flashing between what's real and what's a dream. I thought,
probably the strongest segment in the film is that story.
Really murky and depressing, and no matter what this poor guy Wendell, it's a gentleman named Wendell Owens. He's depressed. He's devoted to his wife, who's comatose.
Mm-hmm.
And and he gets some advice from what kind of doctor is this guy, man? He gets some advice.
So they have they use a lot of the same actors in every segment. So the doctor, his friend is a doctor, and he basically suggests that if I give you these pills and you accidentally give her more than 2 or 3 in a 24-hour period, that she may not make it, and that it will not be detectable. He's
because he's got the bills are piling up.
And she can't be living in happiness. She's comatose. She has to be. One impression that was left on me was if you noticed that he would prepare her meals. Just like you were preparing a regular plate of food, be it sushi or whatever. And then he would stick all of it in a blender. And,
he would go through all this trouble to make beautiful sushi. And there's those kind of detailed and, comedic little things that are kind of, sprinkled around this really murky story, but it's sad, and at the same time it's gory, and it's really, I thought the final scenes there were really scary.
Definitely. There was some good.
They used that in the trailer. I saw the thumbnail for the trailer, and I saw that because it leaves a pretty lasting impression. So that was
it was great. It was good, really good writing.
It was. And this guy just gets himself into a mess that he can't get out of, and it just keeps circling and circling to drain. And it was all a big mistake, And then, of course, as we go along, there's a big reveal in the story that as we're talking about that Sam, the girl. As time goes on, she's kind of talking, telling, she's kind of baiting Montgomery. Is like, that's it. That's not too scary. He's like, each story is not that scary. And she's she's not really impressed. But then she offers a few confessionals along the way that kind of, it's a big reveal, and it comes in right before the third act. And it makes it for an interesting, addition. And it leads into another segment, which is the Babysitter's murders, which I thought was, it was really clever.
Yeah, it was clever, and it had a little bit of that two things going on at the same time vibe, in that the character in the segment is watching the Babysitter murders on TV. So you actually don't know at some point, you don't know whether you're watching the segment or what they're watching on TV. But it had some clever writing in it.
It did, and some twisties. Some
little twisties.
And the thing is, on that one, the thing that was really clever in the writing of the whole movie was the fact that they took one of the segments and then weaved it back into the wraparound frame. Story.
Exactly.
And exactly. I thought that was really neat, because you didn't feel like it was it wasn't an afterthought. Hey, we got these 4 stories made by 4 different directors and 4 different writers.
The whole thing is one cohesive story. I agree.
Yeah, and so to me, one of the most gnarly scenes the scariest scene to me there is that library scene with the
that was great. It's kind of a climax. Did you get this vibe too? I don't want to give anything away or spoil anything, but it kind of kept going. I thought that would be the climax, and then that was it. But the story keeps going, and there again, we're talking about the the wraparound story. Not one of the segments, but the actual story that's, being told in between the segments. That lasted a lot longer than I thought, when it came to an end,
Yeah, I thought it was going to abruptly end like a lot of these things do, where they had like that goofy, ironic ending that you're like, what? Like,
right. So to wrap this up here, would you recommend this over, say someone has not seen Creepshow or Trilogy of Terror, Dead of Night, and you have this tendency, as I do, to be nostalgic about your choices. So knowing that, which one of these anthologies, if you had to recommend one to a new or current horror fan, which one would it be?
I'd say I think personally, I think Mortuary Collection is great for today, for something that is on Shudder and it's streaming, and you're pleasantly surprised. Overall, I would say anybody who's a horror fan should see Creepshow 1.
Yeah, man,
absolutely.
Agreed.
And I would give it a 3.5 skulls. I mean, it's a great popcorn watch. If you liked, I could watch.
It's definitely not boring.
It's not boring.
Entertaining.
I recommend this one to anybody who looks for a good anthology. You got to look through there's a lot of bad ones, which we didn't mention. What kind of rating do you give the Mortuary?
Around the same. It's not, like I said, it's not a classic. But I like the 5-star system, so I would go with around the same. 3.5 is great.
Would you recommend this to a horror fan?
Definitely. Someone, there's a obvious crowd out there, part of the population that does not like gore and thinks, certain horror aspects are silly. So no, I wouldn't recommend it to those people, But if I know you're a horror fan already and you don't mind gore, I would definitely recommend it. It's not a time waster.
Yeah, it's definitely not for normies.
No,
the exploding penis thing alone.
We're not even telling you how that happens.
It was so intense. I normally try to freeze frame things that I didn't even think about rewinding.
Yeah.
I didn't have to,
The cool thing about us mentioning it is we didn't give it away. We're not spoiling anything. We don't do it justice because it's all about the context, and you have to just kind of witness it yourself.
So what was the Rotten Tomatoes on this one again?
On Mortuary Collection, it was 95% for the critics. Rotten Tomatoes rating. That's ridiculously high, for what it is,
Wow.
I mean, some of my favorite films don't have that kind of rating,
Let me look up here real quick. I got it's the writer and director Ryan Spindell.
Wow, he wrote all the segments, everything, huh?
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty good.
I don't. There's not a I mean, I'm sure you can look up what he's done,
right?
But I mean, I think that's a lot to his credit, and I thought Clancy Brown was awesome.
Yeah, man.
Even with all the with the creepo, you could, even though he's got a lot of makeup and he's in disguise, he still looks like him.
Yeah.
And the first thing I thought about was that scene in Bad Boys when he picks his nose and he puts it in the guy's.
I knew you were gonna say that. Yeah, man.
In his food, and how he terrorized them, and then later on,
he puts
they join forces.
Puts a bug in his food, man.
Yeah. And I thought, I think the girl who, I think I'm looking on the Mortuary Collection. I'm not doing this off memory. Trust me. Caitlin Custer. I thought she was great.
Yeah.
She was playing she was playing a, kind of a disgruntled, probably college age,
Sure.
girl, and fascinated with the macabre. And it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
well, I highly recommend on my end too, man.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys can find us at anchor.fm.
Heck yeah.
And if you look up the Vega Brothers Music and Movie Hour, you can listen to episodes there. They'll be streaming everywhere else. But let me see. Do we have anything to plug, Tony? Do you have anything you want to plug?
No, just in line with what we were talking about, Shudder. These aren't. Obviously, we're not getting paid to say any of this stuff, but I think you should check out Shudder if you like horror. Fangoria magazine is back.
So Tony, where can people get in touch with you?
TonyVegaBand.com has all my contact information. You can look me up on Facebook, Tony Vega Band. That's pretty much it.
Beautiful. I don't have a .com, but you can hit me up on Facebook or Instagram and Twitter. I'm just the Armando Vega. Because I know it sounds egotistical, but it's better than Armando Vega 001378.
Right.
But so we hope you guys like this episode. We hope you guys follow us along. If you got any suggestions, comments, and questions, man, feel free to let us know on our DMs.
Definitely.
Well, thanks you guys. Thanks for joining us on our first ever episode. Spread the word.
Peace.